James Bond were to defend against the king's pawn, then you choose the Alekhines. 1 knight f6. It's dangerous, racy, and bloody hairy. The Aston Martin of chess openings. It leaves your opponent shaken, not stirred. Kitsch aside, I've been playing the Alekhines ever since I was 15 years old, when I decided that the Sicilian dragon was both too turgid and theoretical. I gave the fire-breathing bishop the boot and hankered after Alekhine's horse. Here I've prepared for you a repertoire that combines state-of-the-art development, in particular the new Kengis variation, along with my own tried-and-tested pet lines. First up is the 4 pawns attack. On the second move, white shifts his e-pawn up to e5, attacking the black knight. The black knight then jumps into the d5 square in the centre of the board. White plays his d-pawn up to d4. Black challenges the centre with pawn to d6. White then once again attacks the knight in the centre with pawn to c4. The knight drops back to b6, and white bolsters the centre with his f-pawn up to f4. Of all lines against the Alekhine, this is white's most uncompromising. He tries to destroy black with a whole mass of pawns in the centre. However, I'm going to show you one of my pet lines which completely undermines this position for white. It goes as follows. First we capture in the centre with pawn captures pawn. White naturally captures back with the f-pawn to retain the central pawn mass. And now we prepare to fianchetto our king's bishop with pawn to g6. This is a slightly unusual system for black, but also a very good one. I'll let you into a little secret. My lifetime score with this system is in the 80 to 90% region. Second up is the rather dual-looking knight to c3, when white tries to spoil our fun. However, after pawn to d5, immediately challenging the centre, white pawn pushes up to e5, attacking our knight. We jump into e4 with our knight, and after knight c to e2, pawn to f6, pawn to d3, challenging our knight, we drop our knight back to g5, leaving white a little hot under the collar. This is considered the cutting edge of this line. More mediocre white alternatives will also be considered. In the third system, white gives chase to our horsey, first with the e-pawn on e5, knight to d5, and then secondly with the c-pawn, pawn to c4, knight to b6, pawn to c5, knight back to d5. This variation can be a little tactically tricky for black, but is positionally dodgy for white. Then we move on to the exchange variation. After pawn to e5, knight to d5 once again, pawn to c4 attacking the knight, knight drops back to b6, pawn to d4, black pawn to d6 challenging the centre, and here white plays pawn takes pawn on d6. I will recommend the dynamic recapture. C-pawn captures the pawn on d6. In this variation, white tries to avoid the burden of supporting a large centre, however black can still whip up some very dangerous counterplay. And finally, and hot off the press, we'll look at the all-new Kengis variation against white's main line. White pawn to e5, black knight jumps into d5, white pawn shores up the centre with d4, black pawn challenges on d6, and then the white knight hops out to f3. This is a very sensible way for white to play. He will develop his minor pieces on central squares and then castle kingside. Black in turn has been experiencing difficulties in the main lines after both pawn from g7 to g6, and also after bishop from c8 out to g4, pinning the white knight. Both of these moves are currently under something of a cloud. Help is at hand. The all-new Kengis variation, which has come to prominence over the last year or two,